You're tuned to 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, worldwide at country.am. It is WKRK, and welcome to the Spring Has Sprung edition of the Sheriff Show.
Good morning.
Good morning. We were off the air. We were talking about time for planting gardens and that good stuff, and tomatoes and cabbage and.
I don't know where I think I'm going to find the time to plant a garden, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Going to try it?
Yeah, give it an effort.
There's nothing like just going out there and picking something fresh off the vine and eating it.
There is nothing like it to have just fresh food out of the garden. And summertime is my favorite time of year, and I think it's because of that reason. You got squash and okra and all kind of greens in the garden and corn and potatoes and just making me hungry now. It's time to go eat.
I wish okra came breaded off the vine. You know, I love the breaded okra and breaded squash. That's hard to beat.
I never could do the boiled okra. I never did.
No.
A lot of people like boiled okra, but I never did like boiled okra.
Yeah, it's fried and breaded. It's good, some good stuff.
Of course, about anything's good if you fry it.
Oh yes, and very slimming too.
Right. It gives you a figure.
That's
just
right.
Round is the only problem, but it gives you a figure.
I keep telling people that I'm definitely in shape because round is a shape.
There you go.
So I'm covered. Yeah. How's the sheriff today?
Doing well. Doing good.
Welcome back to the show. And you had a pretty exciting, busy week.
We always have a busy week. It's we have very few days that's not busy anymore. It's a pretty good operation that we have to run over there and maintain, and it's middle of budget time and trying to figure out what we're going to need for the future and all those kind of things. And it's just it's hard to kind of just predict what you're going to need for the next year, much less the next 5 years or 10 years. But we've been trying to do work with the commissioners on doing financial planning and trying to figure out what we need, everything from facility maintenance to our vehicles, manpower, all those kind of things that we need in our communities. And we realize that we don't have the financial resources in Cherokee County to give us everything we want and even really everything we need, but we can plan for that and kind of add to it a little as the years go by. And hopefully we can keep up with the growth and keep up with the things that we see happening out there.
It goes back to the old saying growing up. I remember Grandpa would always say, live within your means.
Right.
So there's only a certain amount of means that we have here.
Right.
And we have to just adhere to what otherwise, there's not like an unlimited supply of money.
No, and I think, every year the commissioners request, and rightfully so, but they request every year for all the offices and department heads to look at their offices they're running and try to trim off any fat that's there and try to scale it down, to where they'll have the excess money to do for other things. But for years and years we've trimmed fat, and the last 2 years that I've been here, we've trimmed a lot of fat, and there's down to the portion now where there's nothing left to trim. And so, the commissioners having to make those hard choices now as far as what our county needs and how they're going to provide for them and where the money's going to come from to do that. So they're calling upon all of us, not just the sheriff's office, but for all the departments within the county to kind of look at what you have and what you're going to need for the future, and let's develop some type of plan for what we're going to need years from now. Dr. Connolly made a very compelling speech at the financial planning meeting last night about the school system and the way the schools were built in the years, that they've been there. And most of the schools we noticed in the county was built in the 50s. And she brought up a very poignant question. She said, when they were building these schools in the 50s, do you think they were planning on 60 years from then, as far as the schools still being in existence and what they were going to need then? And I think we're all guilty of not looking into the future and looking on down. We kind of look what's in front of us in this year. And I think we need to be responsible, maybe not necessarily 60 years, but I think to be responsible, we still need to look at a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan and those things down the road and things that's kind of predictable that we can figure out what we're going to need and where we're going to be then. We all know things change and you can't predict everything that's going to happen, but we can look at trends and see the way things are going and kind of project where we might be 5 or 10 years from now. And that's kind of what we're trying to do at this point.
I was just looking this morning at the article about the old white church school in Hanging Dog. Alice Chastain was talking about it. And I remember growing up with that building, how old and outdated it was even when I was a young kid.
Right.
And from this article that I read, it closed the year I was born, 73, 74.
Right.
And then for years it just stood empty there. And it just, I've been inside it a few times. It was just, it just felt so old, hard to heat. And so, you got to think about all those costs associated heating and lighting and
Yeah. Well, like with the sheriff's office, for example, we moved into that new building over there, the new jail and the new sheriff's office in 2007. And
10 years.
10 years. So now it's 10 years old. And for 10 years now, we've not had any facility maintenance line item budget for that because it was a new building. There was no maintenance really to do other than your incidental things that happen if you had air conditioner go out due to a lightning strike or something like that. You had those type of things.
Or a tornado pass
Or a
over
tornado
the
pass
building.
overhead, which happened. But now, 10 years down the road, one of the things that we're looking at and we're talking to the commissioners about is now we have tile that's coming up. We have carpet that's coming up. We have walls that need to be repainted and dents and divot marks that need to be fixed, and furniture that's outdated, and we've got all kind of different things that needs to be repaired. And we had a bid. We bid out construction companies to come in and look at all the repairs that needs to be done, kind of what we were looking at. And to do everything that needs to be done is going to be somewhere around $70,000, but we know that we don't have the resources or the budget for that. So we're looking at what has to be done this year. What can we do to get us up to where we need to be, and then break that out over the next few years to come. And so instead of just giving the county an additional $70,000 debt, we might look at doing $10,000 this year and for the next subsequent years, of doing $10,000 to $15,000 projects. And so we're looking at trying to break that down and be fiscally responsible with that. But with any building, it doesn't matter, like I say, how new it is. Eventually, you're going to have to do repairs. Eventually, you're going to have to repaint. Eventually, you're going to have to do the things you need to do to keep that building going. And you talked about the White Church School. When a building sits empty or there's a building that gets some age on it, then the repairs become harder and harder to do. And I think that's one of the things that Dr. Conley was arguing in her speech last night in front of the commission board, was as these schools age, every year it's costing more and more to keep them going. It's costing more and more to keep things flowing. So we have to acknowledge that. We have to figure out what we're going to do for our future and how are we going to plan for our future.
I think just seeing how expensive keeping the courthouse itself.
Right.
How old is that building? Do you know?
The courthouse?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know it burned down several different times. I was trying to think when the marble courthouse was built. I think it was in the early 1900s. I'm not sure of which year it was, though. But it's been there, going on near 100 years, I'd say now.
And it's probably a little harder to maintain than a modern building.
Right.
But it's so nice having that marble structure there, and just a beautiful building.
Right.
And even the thing that was taken off the top of it for repair.
Yeah.
What was that thing called?
The dome.
The dome?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, as age happens, it just takes a lot more money to keep maintained.
And the thing about it, too, as some concerned citizens were speaking at the meeting last night, we all want and we all understand there's a need for more deputies on the road and more positions to be available out there for more coverage in the county. But one of the things that we also need to acknowledge and understand is when you add a new position, such as a deputy, to the road, not only are you talking about that salary that you're having to pay that person to do that, but there's other expenses that come with that as far as the insurance and the workman's comp and all those other things that's added to that. But also there's uniforms, there's firearms, there's leather gear, there's boots, there's all those uniform type things that come with that. And then vehicles, you have to have a vehicle for that person to drive. And then the maintenance and upkeep of that vehicle. So just adding one or two positions can wind up being very expensive to do that. And the question that we have to ask ourselves, and the question that me and the commissioners individually have been talking about, is that, you've got to look, you don't want to go in and just ask for a bunch of things without indicating what you need those things for and how you're going to utilize those things, and make sure that what you're asking for is cost effective for what you're getting out of it. It doesn't do any good to go and ask for 10 deputies if you don't have a plan for them and you don't know what you're going to do with them, and just put them out there just to ride around in case something happens. That's not a feasible plan, a financial plan. We need to know specifically, if we ask for more positions, what are we going to do with those positions? How are we going to utilize them? Will it be cost effective? Will it be beneficial to add these people? And kind of how that will offset some of the problems that we're having now. So I'm not one to just go in and ask for things because I think we need them or we want them. We need to justify it, and we need to articulate why we need those things. And I have no problems doing that. And I think it's just a good fiscally responsible, even to our community, to be able to articulate why you need the things that you need.
How are you able to handle the variables that change? I know in a budget like today, gas prices may be $2.25, and then 6 months from now they could be $4. So, and your department, I know, has to have a huge budget for gas to patrol all the roads that we have.
One of the things that they do is when we do our budgets, we do basically a trend budget. We look at how the budget ran over the last several years in each individual item, such as fuel, for example. We look at how the fuel bills have run over the last 3 to 5 years, kind of see how those trends are growing each year, how much they progress percentage-wise. We try to factor that in as a projection for this upcoming year. However, like you say, there's some things that's out of your control. You may project this year that you're going to need 5% more in fuel costs than you did last year, but those gas prices may triple, this year. And so what happens is when you go through the year and you're running out of money in that line item, then we have to go back to the commissioners and do what they call a budget amendment and ask for more money for those particular line items and for the commissioners to amend those budgets during the year. And we try to avoid that. That's not something that anybody likes to do or wants to do. So we try alternative methods before it comes to that point. I know one year that the gas prices were so high, I know that we did some things, even during the shortage, when the pipeline burst, we tried some things to save on fuel and not to waste fuel during that, such as making sure that when you're out in patrol and you're writing reports and things of that nature, not to sit with your car idling and wasting that gas. So we made sure the deputies were conscious of what they're doing. Sometimes we put 2 to a car and things of that nature. Just try to save on that fuel. And so there's things that we can do during the year if we can trend that budget. And as the year progresses, we know that 6 months into the budget we should be at 50% of our expenditures. And so if we look at that fuel budget and 6 months into it, we're only at 20%, then we know that we've got plenty left over in that line item if gas prices were to rise. But if we get to 6 months and we've spent 70% of the budget, then we know that we're in trouble of running out before the end of the year. So we need to start managing that and try to prevent from running out. But then the event that we do, then we'd have to go back to the county commissioners and ask for a budget amendment on that.
How dependent are we on technology? I know that here at our station, we depend on the internet and satellite technology. So probably 90-something% of the day as we depend on that kind of technology. Yeah. And one day we could have a power failure, the internet could go out and satellites could go down or something could happen. How dependent are we on technology in the sheriff's
There's
office?
always redundancy, and there's always backup plans for things. And so we're pretty technology dependent right now. We are, like I say, the cars are connected with dispatch and can add the case notes and things of that nature from the cars. We can write reports from the cars. We can run driver's license and and tags and those type of things from the vehicles through our database system. And so we are kind of technology dependent. However, one of the things that technology does allow us to do also is if our cars can't connect to the internet or there's a break in the internet service or whatever, we can still do those things in our system in the car. They don't upload to the main system until that technology is restored, but they can still operate, can still work, and still have those things through their laptops and different things in the car. And if that was to fail, we still have the hard copy handwritten where you can fill those out by hand. And so if everything was to go kaput all at the same time, we still have those handwritten hard copy forms that we can fill out.
I know in my case, if we do have some redundant systems, but we're not completely fail proof. And if all those systems fail, I have a really good plan: go home and sleep.
Right, there you go.
Just go home, take a nap, and wait for it to start working again. That's my plan. Yes.
Well, like for example, here I think it was last week when the storms came through, and we had the power outage. During all that, the power went out. It was either last week or week before last. I don't remember now. My days are running together. But like for example, the power went off at the sheriff's office. I think that was the day that it was out all the way down to Joe Brown Highway and Unique
to Tri-County,
and back up this way. And so it was a good test for us. the emergency generators kicked on, battery backups, all those type of things. So it was a test for us to keep operational and make sure that things were going good. And we did find out through our new 911 center that there was a couple consoles that was wired correctly and a couple that wasn't. And when the power went off, we lost 2 consoles, but we still had 2 that was operational and up and running. And so that was a good test for us to understand that here are some things that we need to change, and we need to have a better system here to back up these things. So, we're constantly looking at that technology stuff and using experiences that we have to try to upgrade and try to figure out how we can do things more redundantly, to where when those things happen that we're not dead in the water, that we're still operational.
And the good thing now is that you have a backup 911 center.
Right.
So that is a tremendous asset.
It is
itself.
a good asset. That in itself, that, if our complete center was to go down, we can pack up and move just down the street and go to a separate one. And so that's a good thing to have in the county.
So. All right. You were going to tell us about, I think, a benefit.
Yeah, one thing I do want to mention today, make sure we get to it, is that, as you know, that our investigative lieutenant, Joe Wood, he and his wife, Hope Wood, have been battling cancer for a while now. Hope has suffered from brain cancer and has been off and on with that for several years now, and that she's been struggling with that, and she is having some very difficult times with it, been in and out of the hospital a lot with it, and now is bedridden at home and those type of things. Well, in the middle of all that, Lieutenant Wood found out that he had cancer and had been treated for it and had some surgeries and stuff done for his cancer, and him trying to take care of his wife during this whole thing. And so what we're going to do is there on Saturday, April 1st, from 4 to 8 p.m. at Ranger Baptist Church at the Family Life Center, there's going to be a benefit there for Joe and Hope and for their medical expenses, and we encourage everyone to come out and take part in that. There's going to be different things. There's going to be singing, food, auctions, raffles, different things that's going to be going on there. And so we encourage you to come out and support Joe and Hope with that. And I'm going to tell you something about Joe and Hope. My brother-in-law, as y'all know, has been having some issues with cancer and has been treated a couple different times for cancer, and now it's come back, and he's had colon cancer, but now he's battling lung cancer. And I came into my office the other day and from the weekend and had sat down at my desk. I noticed there was an envelope there on my desk, and I hope you don't mind me telling this, but when I did and sat down at my desk, there was an envelope. There was some money in it, and it was not a tremendous amount of money, but there was some money in it, and it was on their label in there from Joe and Hope to my brother-in-law. And that just kind of shows the kind of people that Joe and Hope is, that all the problems that they're going through and all the suffering they're doing, they're still thinking of other people and still trying to help out other people that's going through the same thing. So I think it's only beneficial for them and only good for us that we would step up and try to help them during their times and help them with their medical expenses and things that's going on. So I want to say that again. That's going to be Saturday, April 1st from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock at Ranger Baptist Church at the Family Life Center. And so be sure and come out and take part in that. We greatly appreciate that.
All right. Yeah, I know we live in a world where bad things happen to good people, and that's just beyond our control. But the good thing is that we live in a caring community that is caring enough to take care of each other.
I think we live in the best place in the world.
Absolutely. Wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
I wouldn't either. I like to visit other places, but don't live there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do live in a great community.
We do.
Well, I noticed this morning on Party Line we had we were just packed with phone calls this morning, and a lot of them were new calls that we don't get a lot. And I'm guessing part of that has to do with the season. Our seasonal residents, are they coming back at this time?
This is about the time of year that they start returning, coming back. And we fluctuate in Cherokee County. We're actual residency in Cherokee County. Our last census had us at almost 28,000, but that was full-time residents.
Right.
But it's through talking to people and talking through the state government stuff, it's believed that we fluctuate from about 27,000 or so in the winter up to over 30,000 in the summer. And so it's about that time that we start getting those seasonal residents back. And this will be the time that we'll start seeing a rise in breaking the entrance and all those type of things, because people who are returning home are just now finding, that their home was broke into over the winter. And so when we have those things and those things that happen, sometimes people think we've got a rash of breaking and enterings. Well, not really. It's just
be discovered.
It's just now being discovered, and so we do expect that usually happens around March, April. Get that influx of breaking and enterings, and it usually goes pretty high for a month or two, and then it starts coming back down. But for our seasonal residents that are out there, we do want to be sure that they understand that when you leave your home and you're going on vacation or you're going back to your other seasonal home, just remember to take precautions, to keep your home secure, to have people watching out for it, looking out while you're gone, letting us know if you're going to be gone. We can do extra patrols and things in neighborhoods when we know that people in these developments are leaving, and we know who's supposed to be there and who isn't. So it helps us to catch the bad guys, and it helps us catch people who's breaking into houses.
I would imagine if breaking and entering, if someone just showed up at their house today and the breaking and entering happened 2 months ago,
right,
that would be hard to be able to.
It is hard. We do catch people from time to time that do that, and what happens a lot of times, people may have surveillance equipment on their home, and even though it happened 2 months ago, it's still captured on surveillance equipment. The other thing is that certain items that are taken can be traced or tracked down. So if you have, like, say, a firearm with a serial number, or televisions, and you have the serial numbers and things like that on them. Sometimes we find those things in pawn shops. We may find them on traffic stops and in different ways, so we can run those numbers and match them back up to things that are stolen. So we do catch people from time to time. We may not can charge them with the actual breaking and entering if we can't find enough evidence of them being at the house. But if we catch them in possession of that property, we can still charge them with possession of stolen property. So they can still get charged just being in possession of it. So, but that's how we catch a lot of people, is through the serial numbers and through those identifiers on that. And sometimes it's unique things. Sometimes people get unique things stolen from their home that may be one of a kind, or maybe very few in the world made that way. And sometimes we find those things turned up in pawn shops in different areas or on Facebook, and these people that sell them don't know how rare they are, and they don't know that they're unique. And so then when they try to sell them in flea markets or Facebook or pawn shops, they're very easily identified, and sometimes we can track them down that way also.
All right. I know there's a nationwide hunt for an Amber Alert situation right now with a school teacher and his student, former school teacher now.
Yeah.
And it's over a week old. I know.
I think it's 11 days now.
11 days now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been really many credible spottings. And
there hasn't.
North Carolina is one of the states where some of those tips have come from. Do you know if any have come from Cherokee County?
I don't think any have come out of Cherokee County. I do know that everybody is vigilant, looking for the vehicle and the people. As a matter of fact, my wife and I walked into a restaurant yesterday, and I saw a younger redheaded girl and an older man sitting there eating, and I know they thought I was probably crazy or something, but I sat there and I stared them down real hard because I was thinking this could be them, you know. And of course, then you go back and you check vehicles in the parking lots and all those kind of things to satisfy yourself, to make sure it's not the people that you're looking for. But the sightings have been very few. So it kind of tends officers to believe they may be held up somewhere in one location and not traveling a whole lot. There has been some sightings. I know on the West Coast, there has been Texas and different places, I'll say possible sightings. So, you get those tips from all over that come in, and it's just going to be a matter of finding the vehicle, and then you'll find them.
And it seems like the picture they posted, especially the teacher, the surveillance cameras from like Walmart, they were in a hair dye aisle, and they had some hair dye, so they're trying to change their appearance probably. And he's gained a lot of weight since that initial picture that they posted of him. So he looks a lot different now than that picture they had on file. So it may be a little hard to track.
It's hard to identify someone from a picture, unless they've got scars or marks or tattoos or some identifying feature. It's hard to match people up with a picture because you can change your appearance so much. I've been amazed at just like going to the store or going to Walmart or Lowe's or something like that. I've been amazed that I can just put a ball cap on some days and just go and walk right past people and they don't recognize you, and speak to people like, oh, I didn't recognize you there. I'm not used to seeing you with a hat. So just something as simple as that can kind of throw off your appearance. And it's kind of the old adage of Superman and Clark Kent, just put on a pair of glasses, nobody recognizes you. But there is some truth to that, that if you change your hair color, you change your facial feature as far as your goatee or your beard, or you grow a beard out, or, the female, if she dyes her hair, cuts her hair, trims her hair, it's hard to go back and confirm that's who that's in the picture when you're just looking at somebody and have no other features to identify them by.
Yeah, pictures are great to have because it does help quite a bit, because sometimes we'll give a description without a photograph, and it can be just about anybody,
Right.
half the population or so, just by these characteristics. But I know technology's changed. Social media has helped be able to distribute
Right.
that kind of information, because those photos do help. But sometimes people are looking for this exact image.
And it's like this too, talking about vehicles, for example. I know with our narcotics unit, through tracking vehicles and following vehicles and following people back and forth where they go, you would be amazed at how many of the same type of vehicles, same colors on the road. If I told you now, and some of you may be on the road listening to me as we're talking about this, but if I put out right now that we're looking for a white Ford truck, just think about how many white Ford trucks there are out there, and how many you pass just here in Murphy and look at, And so, like I say, without those tag numbers, without those descriptors and those identifiers, and even with people, it's hard. There's so many people that's similar looking. There's so many people that has the same type of vehicles, that has the same type of appearance. It's hard to weed through all that and identify someone. And sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I know the Tennessee Bureau of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the TBI. I'll say it. That's easier. TBI. They are encouraging people to look on their property in rural areas. They're kind of suspecting, since there have not been a lot of leads out in public, sometimes they may be just on someone's property or on campgrounds and
Could be
just trying to hide.
Could be just be off the beaten path somewhere.
Yeah. Sometimes in people's minds, they just think if it goes long enough, people will give up looking. But that's not really the case.
It doesn't really happen. No, people keep looking. And I think D.B. Cooper is about 60 years old now, or something like that, 70 years old maybe, from the hijacking, and people still looking for him. So,
oh, wow.
So, people don't stop looking. They keep looking until they find you.
Yeah, especially the family members. I mean,
right.
The parents of that girl, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's like and that whole community, just a missing part, just up and disappeared.
Right. Yeah. So it's something that is a mystery that we really don't have answers to at this point. Literally could be anything from a kidnapping to the girl went voluntarily with him and under being manipulated in some fashion. So really don't know what the situation is until we find them. So. But I will tell you that everybody in the country is looking for them. Every time I hit my car and drive down the highway, I'm looking for tag numbers, looking for cars. And one of the things that our officers do when we get in a car with having the computer system in there is they have a tab on their computer that says BOLOs, be on the lookouts. And so when they start their shift, they can hit that, and it pulls up a list of things to be looking for: stolen vehicles, wanted persons, missing juveniles, things of that nature. And so it gives the officers an opportunity to refresh their memory at the beginning of every shift. This is what I need to be looking for. These are the things that are out there. And even like local stolen vehicles and unauthorized use and things of that nature, those pop up. And so it's just a refresher to say, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be looking for that truck. So as I'm driving down the road, I'll start looking for it.
That is a great way that the technology makes things not only convenient, but just accessible.
Right.
Yeah, just having to go through if you had the old paper files, trying to go through that every day before your shift.
Well, true with that being in the car and even having internet access within the car. What that does is if you stopped a vehicle and you wasn't familiar with in memory of what that tag number was, or you thought this might be